LMFM.
Now, the European Court of Justice has ruled that employers may ban staff from wearing Islamic headscarves and other visible religious symbols under certain conditions. Now, it's those conditions that may be important in terms of how this is implemented, because there's two different cases involved in this ruling. One to do with a Belgian company that had prohibited employees from wearing such headscarves if they were dealing with customers because they wanted to protect a public image of neutrality. And the court said as a result of that they may not be guilty of discrimination. In a separate case, a French company dismissed a software engineer for refusing to remove her headscarf, and the court said that that may have actually breached EU laws barring discrimination on religious grounds. Now, we're joined by Nora Nasib of the Amal Women's Association, and a very good morning to you, Nora, and thank you for joining us here on the programme this morning. You're somewhat concerned about this ruling and how it may be interpreted. It goes back to individual countries, I think, to decide how they will legislate in respect of this, but you are concerned.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me on the line. It gives the voice of the Muslim women because they actually affected by this. Is actually clear breach of the human rights because it's not our choice. Like, it's been taken away from us. If this law been done, why they should dictate what we wear? Like, it doesn't affect our work at all.
Okay, but that may be in some circumstances where you may not be allowed to wear a scarf. But in such a circumstance, the court is suggesting that it wouldn't be discriminatory because religious emblems and symbols would be prohibited, generally speaking, which would be the case in the Belgian company, where you wouldn't be able to wear a cross if you were a Christian, for example.
Yeah, so in that case, to me, it feels that the faith community is no longer welcome. It means that they cannot work. Like, this is only the cloth that they're wearing is just showing the modesty. It's nothing to do with the work ethics, or they can still do their work and do great in even studying or sports and things like this.
And your belief is that regardless of the company or the company's view on how it is perceived by other people, if it doesn't want to be seen in one way or another, that you should be allowed to express yourself? Yes,
it's like you should respect what we wear. Like, it's our choice, and it's upsetting me because for myself, when I put my qualification on the CV, they are welcoming me for the interview. But as soon as I enter the room, I can see that they're offended by the way that I dress. Why is this? Why it should be the case that they see what I wear instead of my qualification? That is not the thing that will make me do my job. Do you understand me? It's like the qualification and my studies is the one that they need to look for, and my experience in my workplace in other company is the one that they need to look for, not the way that I dress.
Okay, but you would be equally discriminated against, I think, is the upshot of this, and that if everybody is treated the same, then in fact it's not discrimination. This would appear to be the view of the court, and they're saying that if you're prohibited from wearing headscarves working in a hospital, perhaps, well then if there's nuns working in the hospital, they wouldn't be able to wear their habits.
Yes. This is why we thinking this law is just for one minority group, because it's only the headscarf for the Muslim woman. It's not for the nuns or the turban for the Sikh. Why, if we put this on law now, it will happen to them next. Like, this is giving them a chance to do something else in the future. And first it started in the workplace, now it will start in the school, in the university, and it happened in France. So it will happen if it goes through, and that's the reason why we just so devastated of what's happening.
The turban of the Sikh is an interesting point. There was a case that goes back to 2007 where a member of the Sikh community declined to take up a post in the Garda Reserve because they prohibited him from wearing his turban, and they said that was because there was a uniform in place which didn't include that. But there's problems there, I think, in terms of how that can be interpreted across the board.
Yeah, because I know, for instance, my friend told me one of his friend is being executed because of the turban. It's so sad. However, in another instance, because the turban was so big, they will not fit the for when you are on the motorcycle, so that's why they don't have to wear the motorcycle helmet. But this is like we have the choice of this is like our basic civil right to have our own choice and freedom on what we wear physically, and it's like it's been taken away from us if this law is happening now.
I think the Garda was also suggesting that there was a question of perception and that it wanted to be seen as providing an impartial police service. There's an interesting opinion piece in the Irish Times today by Claire Hogan, who's a barrister and an expert in constitutional freedom of religion, and she's making the point that whilst the Gardaí prohibited somebody from wearing a turban because it wanted to be seen as impartial, that the Garda badge reflects Celtic Christianity with 4 decorative circles positioned at each quadrant resembling a cross. And things are not always black and white, and that if you're to allow religious freedoms on one hand, well, then it has to be across the board, which would be in line with this ruling from the European Court of Justice.
Yes, I agree with you. This ruling is a clear breach of human rights. It infringes our right as a Muslim woman to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. Because we wear this as part of our religion and it's part of our identity. And if it's been taken away, and they strip the identity of ourselves, and it doesn't like why the way that I dress is affecting the workplace. Like it should be the qualification that they need to look for, not the way that I dress.
I think the point, though, is that it's a question of interpretation, and it might actually strengthen your rights. In the case of the Garda, perhaps it could be argued now that because the Garda badge reflects Celtic Christianity, that a member of the Sikh community should be allowed to wear a turban. Or perhaps it could be argued that if nuns are allowed to wear habits teaching children in schools, well then members of the Islamic community should be allowed to wear headscarves. Yes, I agree to this, because the nun is allowed to wear the scarf, and also I know the Jewish women have to wear the veil as well. So if you just ban the headscarf, why not ban those things too? This is only one community is being affected here. Well, I'm not sure that is the case. Perhaps it applies across the board. I think that's the difference between the two rulings from the European Court of Justice, but it will have to be interpreted by each of the countries, and time will tell. But I think your concerns are very understandable. We have to leave it there, though, for the moment. Nora, thank you indeed for joining us here on the programme this morning. Nora Nasib of the Amal Women's Association there.